Hello, everyone, and thank you for staying at the Login VSI Summit event. I'm so excited to have you here, and a very special welcome to Freek, who, while his biceps are strong, his collarbone unfortunately is not anymore. But I'm very excited to have you here today, Freek. You're a book author, public speaker, a principal product manager at Aludo. I think you just changed jobs, so congratulations on that. And with that, please show us what you're going to tell today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction, and happy to be here at the Vision 2022 event. So, like you said, I almost didn't make it, but I'm here. So, in the next 25 to 30 minutes, we'll be talking about application modernization technologies. More specifically, we'll talk about MSIX app attach and how Parallels RAS, Parallels Remote Application Server, is able to take that technology and expand on it and improve the admin experience as well. So yeah, my name is Freek Berson. I am, like Mark said, a product manager at Parallels. Recently joined this month, so I have a long history in the end-user computing space. Microsoft MVP on that topic as well, and well, excited to be here to talk about this topic. So I suggest we dive in. So let me share the agenda of the topics we're going to cover in this session. So we'll do a really brief overview of the Parallels portfolio, just so if you are not less familiar with what else we do besides Parallels RAS. Then we'll dive into Remote Application Server and show you a couple of things that we do with that product. But more importantly, we'll focus on some of the application challenges we see when it comes to application lifecycle management in RDS, SBC, and user computing environments. And that'll be our introduction into the MSIX app attach technology. So we'll take a look at what that is exactly. And our live demo, although I am right-handed, so it's going to be a little bit tricky today. It's going to be Parallels RAS with on top of it MSIX app attach and how they well work together in a much better way. And as a bonus, I have a couple of things to share around our automated image optimization and a collaboration we did with Login VSI to get some telemetry data on that as well. So let's dive in and take a look at the solution portfolio by Parallels real brief. So of course we have Parallels RAS, the topic of today. We'll talk about it in just a second. But you might have seen we also recently acquired Wingo as of June this year. And Wingo is a solution that provides a unified workspace that really focuses on the security part. So enabling the zero trust model to publish applications and desktops based on that technology, but also enterprise apps and SaaS applications and even files is able to do that. We also have Parallels Desktop. You might have seen or heard it or maybe using it. It is a quite unique solution in the market that allows you to run Windows 11, Windows 10 with a very native experience on either Mac OS or Chrome OS. And then there's Parallels Access, which is more of a consumer product, if you will, which allows you to connect to your desktop, your home PC from anywhere in a secure way. And finally, Parallels Toolbox, which is literally a toolbox of all kinds of tools which allow you to do to become more efficient in your day-to-day work, for both available for Windows and Mac. So Parallels RAS, of course, is the topic of today and how that integrates with that MSIX app attach technology. Real brief, if you're not familiar, it is our all-in-one solution that allows you to publish applications and desktops to an end user using any device and at any location. So we are looking for delivering the best user experience across all kinds of different client platforms. So we have a native client for all of the platforms that you see on this slide here. So that is Windows, iOS, Mac OS, Chrome, etc. And also making it easy for the administrator to manage and maintain such end-user computing, RDS, AVD, all kinds of environments. So some of the key benefits, and I'm not going to go over this entire slide. We're definitely going to provide this with you as sort of a takeaway. But real brief, these are the 5 pillars that we work with when we provide our benefits to our customers for these environments. So first of all, we have a big focus on UX, right? Making sure that the end user experience, the perceived end user experience is optimized for any operating system, including web access and iOS and Android, etc. Second one is about data security. So we want to make sure that we prevent unauthorized access to data, right? So we have a lot of different policies, client policies available that allow you to prevent access or, base them on certain conditions as well. Third one is really about flexibility, about being agile. So we have a large mix and match options available to connect to all different kinds of server and client operating systems for your host as well as different hypervisors and hyperconverged, but also making it able to connect to Azure, to AWS, to Azure Virtual Desktop, to have all kinds of different on-prem, cloud, and hosted environments available. And we do like to use to make that easy to use for the administrator, right? So we have a lot of wizards in our console that help the administrator through the process of setting it up and configuring it. And of course, a big focus on TCO and reducing TCO, especially when you're talking about cloud solutions. So we have a lot of options to lower the footprint of the disk, for example, but also improve using image optimization and based on our continuous user model, which is just a single user with all of the features in this slide and much more, including free training and free 24/7 support. So with that out of the way, let's talk about that integration. So Parallels 19 is our latest release, and it includes the MSIX app attach integration we're going to talk about today. But other main features in that release were our AWS connectivity to use that as a cloud provider, and also Let's Encrypt. So Let's Encrypt allows you to work with certificates in a much easier way so that you don't have to worry about updating and managing certificates once they expire or need to be renewed. And lastly, before we really dive into the technology, again, I'm not going to cover all the items in here, but just to give you a brief overview of all of the features we introduced as part of our 19 release. This is that entire list. So things like multiple MFA providers and the policies that I talked about, the Let's Encrypt. But for this session, we'll focus on that app attach technology. So let's go ahead and do that. And so let's address a couple of challenges that we often see in the market when it comes to end-user computing environments like RDS, like Azure Virtual Desktop, or any other environment that's multi-tenant or multi-user, for example. And so one of the common challenges we see that, especially if you're dealing with larger customers, that you're dealing with a lot of different departments, and all of those different departments require different sets of applications, right? And so that often results into managing a lot of different template images. And of course, that can become very complex and very time consuming, especially if you need to perform application updates in all of those template images separately, right? It can take a lot of time. It's time consuming, especially for those applications that tend to have, a lot of new features, a lot of new versions being introduced. And the last one here is a little bit different, but also important to note is that once you're migrating to a new operating system, for example, you're migrating from Windows 10 multi-session to 11 multi-session, or Windows Server 2019 to 2022, it's a very expensive and risky and time-consuming task to test all of your new applications, possibly have to rewrite them as well. So wouldn't it be great if we would have a solution that has a different perspective, a different view on dealing with applications and application landscapes? And that is where the MSIX App Attach technology comes in. So MSIX App Attach, just to make it sure that's not our technology, it's a Microsoft technology. You have to know that it basically consists of two different things. So first of all, we have MSIX, which is a new application packaging format, which allows application vendors to deliver their application in an MSIX format, which is a much more modern way of packaging and delivering your application, providing additional security, but also providing ways to have a much cleaner install and uninstall option. So how do you then retrieve such an MSIX applications? Two different ways. One, hopefully native by the application vendor. So some application vendors are already delivering their application not only in MSI, but also inside an MSIX or MSIX package. Like, for example, Power BI by Microsoft or Firefox or any others. So does that mean that those only can be used as part of the MSIX App Attach technology? Definitely not, because the other way, and that's more of an IT pro way, is taking an existing MSI, taking an existing executable, and transforming it into an MSIX package. And there's all kinds of tools available Microsoft that help you along with that transformation as well. And one that I want to mention is a third-party tool called AppCure, which really help you with a lot of the speeding up the conversion process and helping you troubleshoot issues in there as well. I have some more on that in one of the last slides of this session. So the end result, whether that's native or transformed, will always be an application inside the MSIX format. So you can then take that application and distribute it to physical workstations or have it being installed manually by an end user. But in this case, we're using it to connect to that app attach process. And that is the second part of MSIX app attach, which is basically expanding the MSIX application. So that means extracting it, taking the contents and putting those contents inside a VHDX, VHD, or SIMFF container. So at that point, the end result is a containerized, expanded version of the MSIX application, which you can then attach underneath the operating system, right? Whether that's Windows 10 or 11 or multi-user, single user, Windows Server, you can then connect the application, attach the application, create a mount point, and make it available to the end user. So without having to do all of the installations inside the golden images, with all of the challenges we talked about, instant application delivery. So a couple of things you need to know about that app attach process before we dive into a couple of demos and show you what it looks like. A couple of terminology things here. So expanding the MSIX, that's what I talked about. The process is expanding it, so extracting it, putting the contents into an app attach package. There are a couple of different ways to do that, using automation, using third-party tools, or following the Microsoft guide. And then you have the process of staging the application. And that is that process of taking the MSIX application and attaching it underneath the operating system and creating a mount point on the file system towards that location. At that point, the application is not visible, not usable for the end user yet. It's just being prepared, being staged underneath the OS. Then you have the registering step, and that is actually making the application package available to the end user. So what does that mean? That means that the application then suddenly ends up in the start menu or on the desktop or in the context menu or whatever that application should become available. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can do that while the user logs on as sort of a logon process. But depending on the number of MSIX applications, you might also want to have them delayed so that the user logon is fast, right? And after that, you are registering these applications transparently to the end user. The other way of doing it is also on demand. So that's when the user actually clicks the application. At that point, the registration process kicks in and the application becomes available, which takes about a second or so to complete. So let's dive into what that looks like. And I realize it's a little bit small, but let me zoom in. So the first thing we see here is the Parallels client on the left-hand side. So we're offering a mix of RDSH and Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 10, Windows Server. And in step number 2, we have that desktop open, and we can see that we have a couple of applications, including the Notepad++ application. And if we take a look at step number 3, all the way in the top, we can see that MSIX application is now open, right? We are able to use it. It has the same look and feel as if the user the user would expect it to be. But if we take a look at the control panel, we can see that there's no MSIX application installed here, right? So we're not using Golden Image approach, or we're installing applications inside the OS. Instead, they are attached using that app attach process. So if we go to number 5 here, we can see that we have a disk Notepad++ being attached underneath the operating system, and that is that staging process that I talked about. So in this case, it's a single application per disk, but it can also be multiple applications or any mixture that you want. Then if you take a look at the location where that is coming from, you might expect that to be in C program files Notepad++, right? But instead, it's now in C program files Windows apps, which is the generic location where all of the applications are stored that are in the MSIX format. So that is what it looked like from an end user. And again, it's fully transparent to the end user and to the operating system as well. In fact, we're actually tricking the operating system into thinking that a new MSIX application has been installed, but rather it's being attached and a mount point is being created. And as a result, both the operating system as well as the user think that the application is there, and it is there, but it's not installed inside the host. So that was a lot of information, but let's actually, put the proof into the pudding, and let's take a look at a live demo. So the first thing I want to show you is our RAS console and how to configure that MSIX app attach integration. So there's a lot of things in this console. We cannot cover them all in this session, but just want to show you that we have a couple of things here, like a farm, which can have multiple sites. So in this case, I have a single site with a couple of session host servers, but also different providers, as well as gateways and other components that I need for my application and desktop delivery. The thing I want to focus on is here on the left-hand side, the application packages. So this is a list of application packages that I have already imported. So how does the administrator do that? You simply click the plus sign here and browse to the location where these VHDX or VHD or SynFS containers are stored. You select one. So let's select Slack as the application. We then investigate and open and expand that package, take a look at the package name, the version, the publisher, etc. And if I click finish here, that application is now being available as an application package. The next thing you do as an administrator is you go to the location where you want to stage these applications, right? So in this case, I have only one session host server. It's a small lab environment, but it can be multiple ones, of course, as well. I have an application packages section here, and as you can see, I have already added a couple of application packages, and I would be able to do that to add them here, as well as on a group level, to have these applications be staged and become ready for use. The other thing that I forgot to mention, if I go back to application packages and I open one up, is we also deal with the certificate management. So you might be aware that any MSIX application always needs to be signed by a code signing certificate. That is an additional security layer. But it also means that the host where you're using that MSIX application or the attached one needs to trust the certificate, right? So we take care of all of those trust issues or manual actions you need to do. So if you have properly signed your certificates, we will make sure that all the session host servers automatically trust that certificate for you. So taking a look at the end user experience then, let's open up the desktop. And in this desktop, I have a couple of applications available. As you can see, so I have a couple of in my start menu here, as well as on the desktop. And again, right-hand side, we see the control panel with a few applications, but less applications than we see actually on the left-hand side. So for example, we don't see Thunderbird, Firefox, Azure Explorer, and as well Notepad++. So those are the applications that are attached underneath the operating system. And let me show you by opening up the disk manager. This is the same thing we had in the screenshot before. The disks are now staged and ready to be used. So as an end user, I can open up, for example, the Notepad++ application and use it as any other application, right? The user doesn't see the difference. But let's go ahead and take a look at the About version here. We can see that we have version 8.4.2 running here. So now let me show you how easy it is to actually update this version, and even while we are still running it as an end user. So switching back, we'll leave the application open. We go back to our admin console, and you can see that I currently have 8.4.2 being selected with the version tag production, meaning that this is the version that I have in production. But I also already imported a new version of Notepad++, because Notepad++ is typically such an application that comes with a lot of updates, as you might be familiar with. So what do? I right-click it here, I say change version, and I say production. Yes, I want to do it right now, and I apply it. And that's it. Now we are running the 8.4.4 version. So going back to the end user, which still had that application open, I still see 8.4.2, which is good because any running user, any active user who had the application open is not disrupted by his work. He can still continue and use that application. So what happened in the background is, if I go back to our disk management, we can now see that we have two Notepad++ applications here, one for the 8.4.2 and one for the 8.4.4. So any new user logging on to the session host will get the new version of Notepad++, while I am the last user in this case, using that earlier version. So now if I close it, and in this case, I am the last user closing this application, and we go back to the disk management, we can see that Notepad++, the previous version, is now gone, right? So even if I, without logging on or logging off, would open up Notepad++ again, you should see that if I go to About here, I now have the 8.4.4 version, right? So it was that easy to make that application change and have that new application version become available to the end user. So just to show you a couple of things that we do as part of our technology to make sure that we make it easier to deal with these application landscapes. So without going and creating a new template image and capturing it and maybe possibly deploying new session host servers, we're able to extract those applications from the operating system and attach them similar to what we just saw. So this is also very close to, for example, how FSLogic's profiles work. If you're familiar with those profile containers, they're also a VHD or VHDX. They're also living on a central share, and they are also attached underneath the operating system to have a much better profile container solution. So this is very similar. And of course, the more applications you're extracting from your operating system and extracting from your golden image, it becomes much easier to, update them as well, and having to do less image redeployments. So that was the demo that I wanted to show you. Let me go back to the slide deck to address a couple of last things. There we go. So hopefully that was interesting to see. And again, it's only a 25-minute session, so not too much we can show, but hopefully that was interesting to see. And again, if you have more information, of course, if you want more information, of course, happy to talk about that at a later time. So feel free to contact me as well. Make sure to share my contact details in the end. So to summarize, the MSIX Appetite technology, we talked about it as a solution to make it easier to perform application updates, whether that's in a session host server or on an AVD environment. We make sure we use that technology and bring it available to the end user, to the admin, and also improve the admin experience there. So not only do we provide the MSIX Appetite technology, like, for example, Azure Virtual Desktop also does, but we also bring it to the server OS, as you just saw. So Azure Virtual Desktop is the only way of dealing with MSIX Appetite integration. If you're talking about the UI to the configuration, we also bring it to other session host servers, even outside of Azure Virtual Desktop. So a couple of benefits now, of course, we're delivering applications in a much more dynamic way, as we saw in the demo, without needing to update the RAS template, as it says here, but it applies to other template usage as well, of course. We're lowering the footprint of the session host server because we're extracting applications and putting them into a central share. And we have on-demand application delivery, as we saw, and even updates available. So based on that built-in version tags that we have inside our product, we're able to easily select any application that becomes, from staging to pre-staging to production, and have users start using it. And even in a production environment, switch applications, while still existing users can still use the older version. And what we also do, what you saw, is that we manage those certificates for you. So we want to make sure that any certificate that's being used to sign those MSIX applications is actually used and is trusted by the session host. So that was a couple of things that I wanted to show you in regards to our integration with MSIX Appetite to overcome a couple of those common scenarios, common issues that we see with application delivery inside these environments. So the last thing before we wrap it up, we promised to talk about that exclusive bonus content. And so, of course, this has nothing to do with MSIX Appetite. This is just something that we wanted to share because this is a Login VSI event, and the stuff that we did here was a joint effort in getting this information. So what is this all about? As part of our Parallels RAS solution, we also provide over 130 optimization options to improve your image, right? To make sure that you have better application performance, better logon performance, but also lowering the user density. Hiring the user density, of course. So in this diagram here, you can see the application and login performance that we gathered using the Login VSI technology. So this allows us to provide more users on the same type of session host server, and eventually, of course, be able to save costs in the end. So that's what I wanted to share, and we have more information on this topic. So feel free to visit the links that I'm going to share actually right now. So I have a couple of call to actions for you. So if you're interested in this and other technologies around MSIX Appetite and Parallels RAS, go visit the links in this deck, and I think the links are also added to this to this webinar as well. So take a look at our Azure Marketplace entry, which allows you to test drive Parallels RAS, the same thing for AWS. We also have an online webinar available that's free to check out on demand, which covers the MSIX Appetites technology, but also anything else that was added into the RAS 19 version. And we have dedicated RAS and MSIX Appetites blog out there as well. And the last thing that I also mentioned in the introduction is that we have a joint solution brief with a company called AppCure. If you're not familiar with those guys, what they do is they provide a solution to help you with the transformation from MSI towards MSIX. So recall that the way to get an MSIX application is either natively by the application vendor or transforming it yourself. And the last part is more of an IT pro way, if you will, which takes a couple of manual actions, a couple of scripts that you can use. And AppCure makes that process of transforming the application much easier. So they can do that using multiple applications at the same time, so really improving the speed and improving the success rate of transforming those applications. So with that, that was the content that I wanted to share. So again, thank you so much for attending. Please, stick around for the rest of the sessions. I think that the next session is actually going to be a panel discussion. Should be interesting, so be sure to check that out. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Twitter, email, LinkedIn. That is all fine. And I'll make sure to check out the question window just to see if there were any questions that were unanswered. So with that, thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the conference.